Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back. Well, I'm live on YouTube right now apparently, but for some reason I can't start my stream onto Twitch. Not sure why. I haven't gotten any emails or anything. It might be my streaming software. Oh yeah, let me see. There. Failed to connect to stream. What's going on, Twitch? What's going on? That's correct. I think that's pretty correct. I don't think I need to use authentication. I never had to before. Maybe? Oh no, password. I've never had to do that before. Well, I guess it's just YouTube for now then. Okay, how's everybody doing today? It's Friday. Weekend's coming up. Hope you guys have nice, I guess, plans for the weekend, you know, after you're done from work today. Some of you, I know, you probably go out and have a beer, have a little bit of fun, things like that. Right? Nothing big going on this weekend. Not really anything big construction wise, I don't think. I haven't gone out to Westminster Mall to get more footage. I did post from Monday, footage that I got on Monday. You can see there's a little bit of activity. Of course, the majority is still going on inside. You know, they probably clean out debris every so often. Take a look, you know, from where, what do you call it? I'm on. But anyways, so there's that. What do you call it? Oh yeah, that's right. So today's topic is RFIs. We're gonna talk about RFIs. The whole thing here is that we good lord, blank there for I had like 3 million thoughts going in my head at the same time. So RFIs, as we know, are requests for information, and when you go to fill those out, usually they're provided, you know, in the construction documents by the architect or well, the entity, whoever it is, because like here in Southern California, we have a big entity called the Irvine Company. They own a lot of property, especially in Irvine, but also around Orange County. They were one of the original big landowners and developers here in Orange County. Obviously their offices and stuff is all at in the city of Irvine. I've had the pleasure of working with the Irvine Company once, and well, actually it wasn't with, yeah, well, the Irvine Company does hire GCs to do their work as always. Small maintenance stuff, they do have an in-house crew that, you know, does, well, small repairs. So they'll bring in the GCs to do their new office build outs, or if a big tenant moves out where they have like half a floor, you know, they want to tear it all out, get it ready for the next tenant, or if they already have someone and they have color schemes and everything that they go through. Obviously inside the offices, if the client has their own color scheme, then they'll do that on the inside. But anything that's visible to the general public when they're walking through the building, in the hallways that are part of just the building in general, but not the office space of tenants, they do have a scheme that they like to put out so that it's consistent. And it's usually throughout their properties. So they'll actually have like a color palette saying, look, this is what we use here, there, and here. And they do actually have standards for their millwork and other things that they'll put in if the client really, like, they don't really have a color scheme, because they do have to pay extra, I believe, or pay it, themselves to do the development of the office space. So then when they send it out to bid, they'll actually send out the color scheme, or they have their specifications for everything, and they just say, okay, we're going to use this color scheme. So then you have to go into their specs and look it up to make sure that all of your stuff is compliant with all their colors and all that stuff. When I worked at the millwork company, we did bid a couple of those, and so that's how I know that they, this is the process that you go through. And so our estimator had to always look and see, because on the plans, the architect was required by the Irvine company. The designer was required to put the color scheme that was chosen into the specifications, or on the plans when they have all their callouts, the millwork, countertops, the millwork colors and things like that. They just said like a certain scheme. Then it was up to the sub and the contractor to verify, to go into the specs and make sure that they're there for everyone. But anyways, when we go to the RFIs, for the most part, you're gonna have a job name, you're gonna have who you are, whether the GC or the sub, and sometimes obviously both will be there. So if you're a sub, just submit it to the GC, and if you're the GC, if you're a project engineer, the project manager should probably just look it over real quick. But because when I was a project engineer and project manager for a GC, usually I would get the RFIs and I would look them over, and actually I would try to find the answer before we send it off to the design team, because I mean there's no other way of showing like that your team really isn't paying attention to details. If you send an RFI off to the architect that clearly is there on the plans or in the specs, and your project engineer or your project team, your project management team didn't catch it, and it's a very easy thing, for you to just go in and take a look at the plans and specs and answer the sub before even sending it to the architect. Then honestly, it really makes you look dumb. You really don't want that if you're the GC. So when I was a project engineer and I would get those RFIs from the subs, yes, I would take the time to read it over, make sure I understood it, and if I didn't understand it, if I needed to ask questions, I would. Sometimes that means that they would actually say like, oh, I forgot to add this, or I forgot to add the picture, or a sketch or something to accompany the RFI. And there were actually times when I actually reached out and said, hey, can you give me a picture? Can you draw a sketch of what's going on, or like what your solution is? Take a picture of the plans, send me exactly where this issue is happening, so that we're more informed as the GC. I understand it and see if I can solve it, my project manager can solve it, or if we actually do have to send it off to the design team to fix it, right? So you fill that stuff in, right? Who you are, obviously the date. So you usually want to make sure that you include like a detail and a sheet number, or just a sheet number. Say it's a floor plan, try to get it, say, between grid lines A and B, and 3 and 4, and that really helps them narrow it, or the room number, things like that. Now, some RFIs that are designed by an architect or like an owner that got someone to do it for them, they will actually have fields for that, where it asks you, or it gives you a place to fill that information in, where you go, the sheet number and the detail. Now, even though you fill those out, I suggest what I would do is you also include that in the question, or where you're putting your text of the information that you're requesting. Like I said, for instance, you can make it even more drilled down, because you can say, you can ask, on sheet 3.0, between grid lines, A and B and 3 and 4, there are, there's a valve on the cold water line that shows a gate valve. We suggest, a what is that? A butterfly valve, blah blah blah, because of this, right? Now, in that case, you're offering a solution or a substitute. Now, if something like that, let's say the butterfly valve is already in other places, you don't have to submit anything else, because you just say, we suggest the butterfly valve model blah 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 blah, which is already approved, and then you continue your response. And definitely I would include like a screenshot, right, or a little if you take your PDF editor, whatever you have, and kind of grab that little portion and put it down there and circle where the valve, as much information and also visual information that you provide for them. A lot of times it's easier for them to just look at it and go, oh, that makes sense. They say, approved or proceed as approved, and then they'll just stamp it and okay, you're off, right? Or yes, approved, please proceed, things like that. And of course, something like that, we wouldn't charge anything else, because we just tell the plumber, hey, this got switched out. Usually the price difference is so small. Let's say it's like a 3/4 inch line, a 1 inch line. The price difference is so small, they'll just be like, okay, yeah, no problem, right? Eat it, or not even eat it, because they can return it and get the other one. No big deal, right? What's a couple dollars going to impact the budget? Usually it's not, especially something like that, where it's that give and take that contractors and subs will work out, because they'll pick it up on another job, or yeah, it's not a big deal, we were already on our way there, or they offer free delivery, whatever. So that's something you really want to do, is offer solutions in your RFIs, if you can, because I know there's times when it's like this and this kind of things, how it worked out. There's no real solution that you want to give, and so what you want to do in that case is kind of like throw it out there, especially if it requires some type of redesign, because as general contractors and subcontractors, usually, yes, we are, or especially subcontractors, right? We are subject matter experts, where we can make a suggestion, but we're not engineers. And a lot of times, even the engineering, from experience, what needs to be done or what you can switch out, but you don't have the calculations, things like that, or they need to get documented. If it's a public works project, especially a DSA or an OSHPOD project, those things you can't make. Well, sometimes you can make field changes with the approval of the IOR, the inspector of record, that's out there for OSHPOD, or like I said, a DSA inspector, someone who's out there, and they said, yes, okay, that's fine, we can make this change, I'll note it, and when the regional comes in, we'll blah blah blah, make sure you change your plans, but you still have to submit an official RFI. What that actually helps you do is to continue the project, so then you don't have to stop and wait for that RFI to come back. Let's say the plumber's already in that area anyways, that goes off the RFI, they wait 2 weeks, now your plumber is either gone, or or he's on the other side of the building already doing even more things. Now he's got to come back, cut that valve out, and in which case a lot of times you're not going to be able to return it, and then put the new one in, but now you've got all this rework that you have to do. In that case, especially as a sub, I would charge for that, because that's a lot of work now. Instead of all you had to do was switch out the valve at right before installation. So it's one of those things. Yes, you have to send an RFI to document the change, but like I said, if you have an IOR there, that's an IOR that's already, or even sometimes the architect will go, that's fine, we'll change it on the plans, whatever, but just make sure you submit an RFI so that we can have it documented. No problem, I'll get you the RFI by the end of the day. Boom, done, let's keep going, right? And that's the thing that we want, we really strive for, right? Even as project engineers and project managers, because as the constructors, we want to keep going. We don't like to come back. revisit areas that we don't need to, right? And so then with in a lot of cases like this, what you want to do is, like I said, you just want to keep going, document it, take pictures, things like that. But going back to the RFI, as much detail as you can give is usually better, so that they don't have to, because depending on the architect, some of them will call you back and say, hey, so like here, what did you mean, right? Or their project managers or whoever is taking care of it on their end, right? Calling you, help me understand this. Now you have to explain it, right? Or they'll kick it back and saying like, we need more information or more detail, something like that. And it's just a waste of time. Now you have people sitting around waiting for these answers. So that's why my suggestion always is to give as much information, and if possible, offer a solution, because that means even less work for architects and engineers, and they can just look at it and say, I can make this work. Go ahead, proceed. I'll make the change. Over and done. As a matter of fact, there's times when we've done this in project meetings with the OAC, right? What is it? The owner something contractor, owner architect contractor meeting. Sometimes the engineers come, and so then when something comes up, you ask a question. Hey, look, here's this, blah blah blah. So you hash it out there. As a project engineer, you probably want to keep track of those conversations. Obviously, especially if you're writing down meeting minutes, but take note of what's going on, the conversation. So then, okay, they hash it out, and they might say, hey, make sure you send me an RFI on this so we can officially answer. All right, no problem. I got all my notes. I'll, do this, blah, blah, just to make it look even better. And then they'll just, the guys in the field can keep going. They can continue on. You just, after the meeting, go over, explain to whatever sub, saying, yeah, we're good to go with what you were suggesting, or, hey, this is what the engineer come up with. This and this, you can say, give me a pricing, or if it's just a matter of just orienting something different, or just something very small that they can change out in 10 minutes, right? Change the design out. Instead of cutting one way, they just cut to a different length, put another stud. A lot of times those guys won't even sweat it, as long as they have an answer and they can just keep going, and they don't have to come back to revisit that same area. It's perfect. So when it comes to RFIs, most definitely you want to give as much information as possible. Make sure you fill out the different fields that are there. Like I said, if it has the sheet number, if it has the detail number, because sometimes if you're looking at a floor plan, obviously you're not going to have a detail number. Or if you are looking at a detail, right, that you give it the detail, so then they can really focus on that detail. And when there's those cases, usually what I do is I'll take the detail and make arrows saying, hey, this is what's not going to work, type of thing, or offer them, grab that detail, and using Bluebeam or some other PDF editing software, move stuff around, or kind of draw a couple things in there just so that they can visually see it and not depend on the wording that you were using. So hold on this. Okay, we're so good. So let me here quick. That's really the goal of RFIs, to get information so you can continue when the design is kind of messed up or whatever. Sorry guys, let me get to see if I can get where we are here. Because I'm pretty sure I'm already in here. Okay, I think. Oh no, there it is. It's there. Awesome. And let's see. I just saying that my bit rate is a little low. It's okay. I still said it's good though. Okay. So let's see what else can we talk about here for RFIs. Um, Not everything really requires an RFI. If it lands within code, sometimes you can do it. Depends also if it's public or private, because public projects require everything, literally everything, to be documented with RFIs whenever there's a change. When you're talking about private work, I mean, as long as it's to code, usually you don't have to worry about it, because since it's covered up, nobody really knows. As long as you're sticking to the code, the requirements by the client, and if it'll pass inspection, it's usually fine. But you don't want to do it all the time. You don't want much. That's not good. What else? Here. Information, right? The request. There are certain things you probably don't want to request through RFI. Oh, let's go back to checking out RFIs from subcontractors. So like I said, when I was working for the GC, I would check what the RFI was, right? And if I needed clarity, things like that. But also, I would take a look. Once I understood what they were asking, I would go through the plans. I would go through the specs. I would look at any past RFIs just in case they missed it, because usually on the job that I was a project engineer, I already, I was in the space. I was already in that project, so I knew it inside and out, and I didn't need to go back and look at the RFIs because I kept the submittal logs, I kept the RFI logs, so I knew everything, all the updates that had been made to the project. So with that being said, I even then, like, my strong suit is not electrical, I'll tell you that. I like physics. I know how electricity works. There's certain things I do know, but there's a lot of things I don't know. I know a little more mechanical stuff, but I still had to go through and take a look at some of the stuff in the plans and the specs. And so I would go through, look them over, right? And there were times when I was like, guys, this is, if you look at note 3 on page, E 3.1 or whatever, it's like, it's right here. We don't need to send this off. Here's the response from us because it's already on the plans. You have to be careful, because like I said, you send that off, they're going to reply to you with the same thing, and they're going to think you're dumb, or you're just not paying attention because you just willy-nilly just sent it off. And when you're doing RFIs, like I said, you need to make sure that you keep your RFI log up to date and you distribute everything that comes in after you look at it as the GC. Once you look at it and you make sure that you understand what the response was and what the fix is, or what the information that is being handed off, whoever it is, your subcontractor, right? Send it to them. But you also have to make sure that you send it off to the rest of your team. And if you're either just a project engineer, you make sure that you send it off to your project manager so that they know what's going on and why things changed. And obviously you send it to your superintendent so that he knows the change that's going on in the field. The last thing you want is for him to stop them from doing what they're doing that was in the RFI because he's not informed. And once again, that just makes your office look stupid because you didn't inform him, you didn't tell him, you didn't keep him up to date, but you did the subcontractor. So one thing that I did when I was superintendent of a project, I always made sure that when I sent things off and everything, maybe even the next day, I would go over and ask, hey, are you guys understand? You guys get the RFI out here in the field, to make sure that they understood what the changes were. That's the line, just like not being informed as a superintendent, you stop them. You also don't want them on the field not to be informed, and then you have to stop them because they're doing the old way, not the new way, or they're not implementing the engineer's response or the architect's response into their, what they're actually building. So you really want to avoid things like that. And this is why, as a project engineer, it is your job to disseminate information and make sure that it gets to the relevant people or the relevant stakeholders throughout the life cycle of the project, because once again, you do have a responsibility to make sure, I mean, it's as a project engineer, that is a big portion of the job is communication. Breakdown of communication leads to money being wasted, and that's the last thing you want to do. Have unprofitable projects. You really don't want to do that. Blah 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 blah. Yeah. Okay. Sorry there. So the RFIs are a big thing and a big deal, and they can cost a lot of money if everyone isn't on the same page. You want to make sure that you distribute that. And my suggestion for your RFI log is, as soon as you send it off, to make sure that you log it. But I got into the habit of, when it was ready to go and I had my email written, before I hit send on the email on that RFI to go to the design team, I would log it in my RFI log. Now, if you get an RFI from a subcontractor, and I usually had two separate logs, subcontractor log and our regular RFI log. So then when I got RFIs from the subcontractors, I would log them in, and then, I have the date I received it, did I review it, and then, which is not so much like oh man, look at this, you didn't review this one. No, that was there so that once I logged it, I had a spot to remind me, did I look over this RFI before I sent it? So if that box pretty much wasn't checked, I wouldn't continue send it. I'd make sure that I look it over to understand it, write my RFI to the design team, and log it. If I have to send it back, I would mark yes, and then it would be sent to design team, yes or no, and why. Obviously, if it was a no, and said answer was in the plans, answer was in the specifications, or it was on page blah blah blah, and then that way, if I ever look back, if they ask me, hey, did you ever send that RFI, I can look over my subcontractor RFI log and say, no, I didn't send it, because the answer is already, it's in the plans right now. And then I would put, whatever reference that is, page number, detail number, or even a note for me to say no and why. And obviously sent that back to them. Oop, bumped the microphone. So anyways, so that's why I usually kept two logs. And some people would say, well, that's excessive. You might see it excessive, but as someone being a little more detail oriented, if they ask you, and if they can't argue with you if you already have it, and say, look, and then you can show your email chain if you go back also, because if you have dates on there, then you can go back to your emails where you send it back and you say, hey, it's on page blah 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 blah, there it is. You have a copy of it, and you don't lose where it is because you have dates, right? So same thing with the RFI log. You make sure, usually, or what I did, I had my RFI number, right? Description or title of the title of the RFI. Not necessarily a description, because a lot of times the title is, kind of gives you idea of what's there, right? Date submitted, they returned, like a resubmittal required, or a resubmittal required, or approved. What was the other one? It was all one field, or one column. And if I had to revise and resubmit, it would just be like RR, right? And then it would have I would put the date of when I resubmitted it, resubmittal date, and then receive date was all the way at the bottom, or at the end of the whole sheet, because that was when the actual approved RFI or the answered RFI came back. Because there were times, like I said, when they would ask questions that they wanted something different, so we would do that. So anyways, there was that, and I got some all up in my thing. Okay, and when we did that kind of stuff, it's just, yeah. So anyways, Let me see what else. The RFI logs. Make sure you keep all of that. If you have, this is one thing I'll give you guys a piece of advice. If you guys have correspondence or phone calls with our design team, keep a log of that also and what was discussed, because there have been times when they didn't make notes on their end, but I did on my end, and so they can say I don't remember that conversation, and I say I can pull it up. Say, on this day at this time I called you and we talked about it, and you said this and you said that, and then and then I asked you if you needed it to be documented, and you said no. So, okay, that's fine, but then I sent you a conversation confirmation, and it doesn't seem like very big thing. He's like, I mean, we talked about it, this and that, but it's a lot of times it's important that you send that conversation confirmation, because if you have it all noted and they say I sent you a conversation confirmation on this day or on that same day, then they can go back and look at it and go, oh, now they can't deny that they never got the phone call, that you actually didn't talk to them about that, right? And so there's an email chain, there's a paper trail, even though it was a conversation, and that can be a very powerful thing. So I suggest you if that you're not implementing something like that, I suggest you do. You can always have a call log, which I did. I actually had a call log on a clipboard so that I can fill that in and write notes and things as I'm talking. But that really happened in the office. Or if we had a trailer on site, then I had a spot to keep it. But if I was out and about, then that's where the conversation confirmation really came in handy, because I could do it off of my phone or off of my tablet, right? And then just set it off. You don't forget about it, because you can't forget. People do forget things, even though I mean, they don't mean to. I understand that. I mean, some people are like, oh, I don't remember, and just leave it at that, right? So it just kind of depends on how comfortable you feel with the architect or the design team, the owners, things like that, whether you want to implement that. But I suggest, if not publicly like that, open, which I really suggest you do, because then you're pretty involved, and your stakeholders, you can CC the project manager so they know, or the senior project manager, so that they also know what's going on. Because I'll tell you, most PMs, especially if you have a good relationship with them and they trust that you know what you're doing, they will go to bat for you. And if you say, no, I called you on this day, they will back you up. But if you include them on the conversation confirmations, there's no doubt they will not question you, and they will stand up for you every single time. And there's nothing like that team, that 1-2 punch team, that really puts those architects in their place, or the engineers, the designers, and they know, oh crap, these guys know what they're doing, and they don't mess with you. They don't try to play games. You're straightforward and shoot from the hip, and actually that can make your relationship with the design team actually better, now that they know that you mean business, right? And take work seriously, but the relationships with people, I mean, take them seriously, because right, client contractor relationship is really, really important, so that you can keep working. Because sometimes when there's dips in certain areas, you can always make those phone calls. Hey guys, you know what, don't say, right, that, hey man, we're kind of hurting for work and we really need to get some work for the guys and things. You can just call them up and say, hey, how's it going, just checking in. You remember that project that we did for you? Yeah, how's it going? Everything fine? You guys need anything? You guys need touched up? Any design changes? No? Okay, cool. Well, I mean, we had some slots open up in our schedule. If you guys had anything, our estimator, he needs a couple more things to estimate. Do you guys have anything in the pipeline? Or even just that, hey, yeah, you guys have anything in the pipeline? We've got this work and stuff, and we're reaching out to clients to make sure, we want to make sure that our clients are taken care of before we take on any new projects, or things like that. Get you penciled in you guys need anything, any renovations, any TI work that might be coming down the pike. I mean, we we want to make sure that we leave room service your need. You can phrase it that way, and then that way, they know you're reaching out. It makes it sound like you care about it. Of course, we all have that little that little thought in the back of our mind about, wow, these guys slowing down, there's no work, things like that. But it can genuinely be just the fact that, hey, the boss is really worried about these relationships, and he wants to make sure that we keep in touch. I've had that happen before. I'm gonna adjust the camera a little, kind of bugging me that there we go, a little better at least, right? So yeah, I would suggest RFI logs, detailed RFI logs, subcontractor RFI logs, communication logs can be very important sometimes. So yeah, let me see. Click on these guys. Hang on, guys. I am trying. Whoop. Figure some. Oh no, because I think I accidentally started another. Here we go. I accidentally started another live stream. Crazy. Let's see. I mean, it's still going fine. All right, let's see how long we've gone. We've gone, what is that? 37 minutes, 40 minutes. I mean, I guess there's not a whole lot to talk about, right? As far as RFIs, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. It's pretty straightforward. I really wish, we had people in here. Well, I mean, shit, for whatever reason, I still can't see the, can't see chat for YouTube. I wonder if I can pull myself up. Let's see. I did show them live. Yeah, it shows 2 of them. All right. Hopefully, it doesn't mess up my stream. It's going both. Okay. See, I can see my chat when I pull up the actual stream, right? This is weird. Like I said, Twitch is having issues. I can't get hooked up on Twitch, so I'm gonna have to figure that out for next week. So yeah, let me see. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm like watching myself right now. So anyways, what else can we talk about concerning RFIs? Just make sure you send them when you need to send out an RFI. Time is of the essence, just like everything else. Time is of the essence. You need to make sure it's clear but concise. Oh no, actually, you want more detailed than concise. Pictures, and make sure those that you send good pictures and you can see an orientation to the picture. I had at a different general contractor that I was working at, I sent, or the superintendent sent me the question, and that superintendent, what happened here? Okay. And so the superintendent, he took a bunch of pictures. Okay, we were doing it was work at a hospital, even though technically it wasn't OSHPOD work. No, it was OSHPOD work. But anyways, so what they were doing, it was they were making changes in an MRI room, right? And so we were in there, we are doing some electrical work and and some work in the control room, and then down the hall, part of it was remodel of a room. Of course, if any of you that have worked in hospitals, you know those ceilings are packed to the max between HVAC, plumbing, electrical, low voltage is all over the place. And a lot of times the low voltage is just kind of hanging there. It's off of hangers, right? As long as they're anchored properly, things like that. Some hospitals will actually run conduit for some of their low voltage, but a lot of them don't. They're just kind of up there, right? So we were working in this hospital, and so he sent me an RFI. He had a question, and I go, okay, hold on, let me write it down, let me make sure I understand. So we were talking a little bit, and then next thing I know, he sends me like 6 pictures, and a picture of the floor plan. On this floor plan, he wrote numbers. He says, okay, this is the first picture I sent you is here. Second picture I sent you is here. All right, we did that. And he sends me the pictures. His pictures are like, right, him taking a picture like this. But yet, I don't know what orientation. I said, wait, hold on. So is that pipe running north-south or east-west? And he was inside the building and he couldn't tell. He's like, you know what? I'm not sure. I told him, you need to tell me kind of like which way the pictures are orientated, right? Which is the wide side, right? The long side. Is that north-south or east-west, right? I kind of need to know, okay, it's in the room and you told me you had sent me the diagram of where these pictures are from, like where on the floor plan, but I don't know which way you were facing when you took them. So that was a whole ordeal. Like I said, you gotta need to make sure that you understand what they're trying to tell you, whether it's the sub or even your own superintendent. I've had times when a project manager calls me and they can't explain exactly how, or what they want very clearly. And I even from some PMs that are very good at doing that kind of stuff. And so I go, okay, hold on. Let me go out there. I'll meet you out there. And it depends, because a lot of the hospital work that I did when I was working for GC, it was like literally 10 minutes down the street. We did a lot of work there. So it wasn't a big deal. Like, just hang on, let me get out there, let me bring my, I brought my camera, brought my notepad so I can take notes and all that stuff, right? So I had to go out there and take a look, and they're explaining to me, go, oh, okay, now I understand. All right, this wall, this is all right. So this is a plumbing line, and sometimes, yes, we did have to ask the subcontractor to come and say, okay, it's hot water, is this cold water? Can you identify this for me? Or even the HVAC guys, because they had water lines. Some of our HVAC contractors, our main one, they did their HVAC, but they also did their own plumbing to their HVAC units. So, there were times when we'd have the plumber saying, I didn't do this. Okay, now we need to get the mechanical guy out here to take a look at this and help us understand this. Or if they explain it to us, then we can really drill down on what the question is, what we need to find out. So it's not just one person building the whole thing. It takes the team, and sometimes answers takes the team. Sometimes getting the correct information takes the team. So it's just something to consider. Some things in here and there, right? Let's see, what else do we have about RFIs? Yeah, I don't really remember too much, Sometimes you have to just attach things from the subcontractor, right? Or sometimes you have to attach a technical drawing and circle things on it or whatever, and saying, hey, these are the installation instructions, right? And you give the diagram and saying, but the wall is too close, we can't do this and that, what do you want us to do? And they'll say, because there are some aspects that you need to be within a certain distance or away a certain distance, but that affects certain things where, like the sub I would tell you, electrical, usually you can get a power boost or pull from somewhere else, another panel that's closer, and now that means going into another room that wasn't even part of the original scope and things like that. So there have been times when we've actually had to do stuff like that. Very rare, but just the power requirement of a piece of equipment, for whatever reason, like I said, especially working in hospitals, because there are some things that weren't documented, or we trip a breaker and it's like, whoa, what's going on? And it was just something somewhere else that's pulling a larger amperage than anybody thought. That brings a whole another flow of ideas there. So something like this can happen because documentation either wasn't done correctly or it just wasn't done at all. For example, we went into a room, it was like a medication room, but we remodeled the whole thing, right? Tore out all the drywall, the cabinets came down, drywall came down, flooring came up. We even ended up replacing the door as part of the project. But a piece of equipment that we brought in, right, we knew, because since it was spec'd out, we knew the voltage, we knew the amperage draw and all that stuff. So the electrical drawings showed a new receptacle for it. It said, pull from this panel. So when the electrician went to pull from the panel, he said there aren't any open spots to put a new breaker in. And we had to bring in the engineer. And the engineer looked at it and said, why do we need to put another one? Look, here's your 30 amp breaker. We only need 15. Hook it up to this one. And we're like, we don't know where that goes. So the electrician traced it, and that's fine. Yeah. Okay. So we put in the new receptacle, ran the lines, hooked it up to that breaker. I kid you not, 2 weeks later we get a phone call that they keep tripping the breaker. We say, okay. So we call our electrician. Luckily, he's one of those that's like a regular at the facility. So they're already on site. You can call them up and they're like, oh, okay, yeah, no, you know what? We'll send someone over. They'll probably be there in about 15 minutes. Okay, perfect. I'm going to hang out. Let's see what happens. So they trace it. Only serves one other receptacle. But there's a new piece of equipment. Nobody knew that was going to go in there. And that's not completely true, because the client, the owner's representative, knew that piece of furniture, well, not even furniture, but that piece of equipment had been ordered and was scheduled to be delivered and goes into that room. And as that room was a small room and that was the only receptacle, because they only had one piece of equipment in there that was plugged in. So now this new piece of equipment required the balance of that original 30 amp breaker. So our 15 amp piece of equipment plus the other two pieces of equipment obviously was too much for that breaker. So they actually had to go ahead and install a new since we already had the walls in and everything, they just went ahead and had us go to a different panel. Actually, the other room did not get a new receptacle. They just went and left it to two, right? And then they came over, so we disconnected. So now we have to demo all of that out and go to a different panel. And of course, that sparks a change order, because we had done original work per plan, and now it changed. It was an unexpected, unforeseen change on our part and on our subcontractor's part. But like I said, the client, the owner's representative, knew that piece of equipment was coming. They just didn't think about it. They didn't put they didn't put two and two together, knowing that this project is going on. So, and those rooms pretty much were back-to-back rooms. But the funny thing is, they were two completely different departments. That wall, or the wall that had the cabinets hanging on them, or was supposed to scheduled to get, new drywall and new cabinets hung off of them. That wall ran down that building. Not only did it separate the two departments, but also, was a smoke barrier wall. It was a firewall, really. It was a firewall. Went all the way to the decking above, had the fireproofing, not fireproofing, fire stop at the, at the head wall. And, yeah. So, just kind of one of those things that happens, right? That unforeseen things that happens. And so because of that, right, we had to write that RFI. The engineer pretty much on site, that let's run it. What other panels do we have in the area? So we showed him the other one that's in the same department. He said, yeah, that's fine. It looks like this one. So and I said, oh, before you go, can we go ahead and trace it and see where it goes, so that I asked the electrician, how long do you think it's going to take you? And he goes, I don't know, it could be 10 minutes if we're lucky and it serves one of these rooms, or it could take 30 minutes or an hour if we have to go to the other place. So I looked at the engineer and said, can you hang out for 15 minutes? If he doesn't get it, if he doesn't find it within 15 minutes, then you can go, and then we'll just write the RFI and do all this and that. Yeah, sure. Luckily, the very first room he walked into is where the other stuff was. And so, he looked at it, okay, this is the panel, and okay, we've got this and this, and he looked at it and he goes, yeah, I mean, we should be fine here. So I told him, how much, well, it doesn't matter because we have to go through a couple things. It's probably going to be a couple hours before, we can get anything done as far as connecting it. And so I said, it's going to be a change order no matter what. They obviously can't leave it plugged in right there. And so, okay, I will write. I'm like, took pictures of the panel, the breaker, and then I made sure that I wrote down the panel number, what room it was in, department, building, all that stuff, get all that information, and went straight back to the office after we all decided, okay, this is how it's gonna get done. Cool. Sub, I need you to go back to your office and send me a price for this work. Engineer, thank you. I will send you an RFI as soon as I get back to the office, so you can reply. And also I will work with him on our change order to get that to the client, and hopefully we can get all of this together, get our change order pushed through. Okay. And sure enough, it was early enough in the day that I was able to get back to the office. I wrote that RFI, and the guy actually called his boss, explained it to him, because the boss was there all the time. He knew exactly where that panel, all the other stuff was. So he got him the information, and probably within an hour and a half of me getting back to the office, I got pricing. So I go, awesome. Everything went out that day. The engineer replied the next morning, we're good to go. And I think 2 days later we had the client meeting, or our weekly meeting, and the owner's representative came and said, yeah, I got this. I can't believe I totally missed this, blah blah blah. I go, you're not an electrical engineer, you don't know everything. It's facilities probably would have known where all this stuff was and what was going on. I mean, maybe not that piece of equipment, but anyways, so yeah. And it was all stuff that our electrician had in stock anyways at the office, the shop. So by Friday we were almost done with this change, right? And bill for it. But of course, like I said in the past, it's not like you get your money right away in public works projects. Sometimes you have to wait 30, 60, 90 days depending depending on the approvals after you submit a change order. And then you got to bill for it. Once the change orders get approved, then you got to bill for it along with all your regular billing. So, yep. RFIs can serve multiple purposes. Yeah. So I would really suggest you get a handle on your RFIs, RFI logs, because like, you know, my boss always says, or one of my bosses said, right? In the field, they read plans. In court, they read specs. So, you know, I mean, I know they go hand in hand, but you kind of get the gist of it, right? And paperwork, you know, you need to have your evidence. You need to have all this stuff. You need to have a paper trail. I mean, I know now we have all kinds of electronic devices, but you know, paper trail is even an email chain, which is better. It's on a server somewhere and not just on your desktop. Yeah. But actually, I think that's it. I don't really have anything else to cover for today. Like I said, it's Friday. Let's have a good weekend. Let's start the weekend off right. You know. What did I do? About an hour and was that 20 minutes? No, it's barely gonna be an hour right now. So, yeah, RFIs. I said you guys see down at my socials and my emails scrolling down at the bottom of this stream. If you guys have any questions, something I can address here, shoot me an email, hit me up on the socials. You know, should be reply. I'm on here every day. So, but like I said, next week, hopefully, if I get this Twitch thing figured out, you know, pretty much around this time from 11 to 1, somewhere in this area. We'll probably start at 11 and we might go like this to 12, might go to 1. Depends. You'll be able to catch me on Twitch. Like I said, once I get that figured out for whatever reason, it worked the first 2 days. I took that break on Wednesday and then for whatever reason yesterday didn't want to work. Yeah. So then YouTube, I'm going to have to hopefully start doing it from 4 to 6. Okay. If for whatever reason I figure out how to stream on both again, maybe I'll even do that from 4 to 6 so that all you have Twitch accounts can catch me or catch me on Twitch also, right? But if not, I'll be here on YouTube. Don't really like the the platform all that great, but kind of it is what it is. I don't think I'm gonna go on to any other, you know, things. Other platforms, I know there's Kick, there's Rumble, you know, other things like that, but we'll see. All right, so I think that's gonna be it. Maybe I'll hop on, do some drawings. I have drawings to do, so you know, maybe I'll bring you along and you have a little work day. You guys can watch me draw. I'm actually getting contacted by a couple people to see about you know, doing some drawings for them, and maybe you guys, you know, we can do this from scratch, and you know, you can watch me from the beginning, get the site plan. Well, actually, yeah, I gotta start getting the floor plan information for the site plan and things like that. Okay, so let me see this. I appreciate all of you who watch these streams afterwards, or you know, if you guys want to come in live and ask some questions, always welcome to give as best of a professional opinion as I possibly can with the knowledge that I have, which is about 25 years of, you know, actually professional career, and before that working with my dad, hanging steel, rolling stuff out. You know, I was 11, 12 years old and I was on the job sites, right back when you could take kids to the job sites. A lot of times owners didn't know, certain people didn't know. Of course, it's not that I was taken out of school, but like during the summer I got to hang out with my dad, and sometimes I wasn't even allowed on the job site, but I'd kick it in the truck, right? Play little games, whatever, kind of keep myself busy while my dad is working. I help him right when he's for lunch, when they're taking break. I'd, you know, keep an eye out for him. He's coming around telling the guys, right, break time, break time. You know, like you're breaking a piece of wood or a pen, pencil, whatever. Break time. Let's go. And you know, lunchtime, and get my dad's lunch pail, and you know, make sure it was ready for him. But then yeah, once I got a little bit older, started actually helping roll out, you know, get the guys what they need, materials, welding rod, right? Get the welding rod into, if the specs called for it, get it in the hot box, get them warmed up before they can be used. You know, when I was in the end of junior high, beginning of high school, and I decided I wanted to go play sports, and my dad would get home, and you know, he didn't like to do the non-straight grout, but he carried a 90-pound bag of grout, and he would make me, you know, after he got home work, or like when I started playing football and I started getting home late, after he got home, and he'd tell me, hey, go take that bag of grout off of the truck, put it right there on the top of the planter, and then in the morning before you go to school, or before I leave for work, you need to get up and you need to put that 90-pound bag of grout back where you got it from. That happened for a good 6 or 7 months, and I tell you, man, at the beginning, kicked my butt. You know, I had to figure things out, how to get it down, because I couldn't lift the 90-pound bag, and my dad always said there's more than one way to skin a cat. So I had to figure that out, which I did. But then when I got into high school, and I, you know, over the summer, we started working out, and then, you know, I could, you know, like 3 months later, I could pick up that 90-pound bag and throw it over my shoulder and get down off of the truck with it. It was crazy. It was nuts, that development. But anyways, yeah, so you can, you know, I got experience, and like I said, different trades and stuff here and there, but a lot of it's been in project management, project engineer, superintendent, actually, for a project or more. And I think maybe next time I'll talk about my story of how I got into project management, or to become a project manager at the GC that I was at, where we did a lot of hospital work. That's a cool but terrifying story. So we'll do that probably for Monday. So I'll tell it twice, right? Once on Twitch and once on YouTube. We'll figure something out. Maybe take a look actually at some funny construction stuff, and we'll see. All right. Like I said, thank you for being here. I'll figure stuff out for next week, and have a nice weekend, guys. Appreciate you.